What's new to all you Fire Emblem aficionados? I'm Don9151, joined again by KirbymastaH.
Hi.
To present Part 2, Chapter 3 of my Fire Emblem 10 Hard Mode 0% Gross playthrough. And this is an iconic map, Joffrey's Charge. I think it's one of those maps that leaves a big impression on players for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's the sheer number of partner yellow units that you have to order around. Maybe it's the feeling of charging through the map with some of our favorite returning cavalry units from Path of Radiance. But before we talk about any of that, I need to talk about the stat check before starting the map. And the most important thing to check in this map is the stats on that one halberdier in the top right corner who has speed wings. Specifically his defense. We need him to roll down on defense, and this is actually very unlikely to occur. It takes roughly 20 to 30 resets on average for that defense to roll down once. So it's one of the least lenient stat rolls in the entire run. For the rest of the preps, we also have to make sure to buy a few items. We need to buy an Iron Blade for Makalov for the slight extra power compared to a Steel Sword. And we also need to go to the bargains to buy a very rare Horse Slayer and Hammer. This is the second of the two hammers and the first of the two Horse Slayers that we're able to obtain in this run. So we have to make sure that we don't miss them.
The objective of this map is to have Joffrey arrive at the top of the map. This is basically a siege map, and most of our party is mounted, which sounds fantastic because LTCer and speedrunners love mobility. Who doesn't like units with a lot of mobility? But this is Radiant Dawn, unfortunately, and in Radiant Dawn, mounted units can't be shoved, and mounted units also can't be rescued. This means Joffrey is pretty much bottlenecked by his own mobility. In other words, the only way to move him further is to just move him as far as possible every turn. This also applies to all of our other mounted units, and we really need all hands on deck at the top of the map. There are only 3 units that can be rescued, Dunved and 2 of the Yellow Army Bishops, and we're going to take advantage of this as much as the game allows us to. Joffrey can only afford to waste 3 tiles of movement for this turn clear, Kieran can only afford to waste 2 tiles, and Marcia can't afford to waste any tiles at all, so the movement requirements for this map are pretty tight. Now apparently these yellow units can move. I didn't know that until today, because in speedruns they just kind of stand still, because having them move around wastes a lot of time, so Don, why are they moving all of a sudden?
Well, we mobilize the yellow units for 2 reasons. One is to protect our blue units, because yellow units are expendable, and we don't really care if they die, but blue units, well, we cannot have them die in this run. And we also need them for some shenanigans near the end of the map. Our most vulnerable blue unit is Astrid. She's a bow paladin. Not only can she not counter, but she's notoriously weak. She's widely considered to be in like the bottom 3 of the worst units in this game, and she gets 2 to 3 shot by a lot of the enemies here. And so why are we even bothering to deploy her? Because I think a lot of casuals will choose to undeploy her in this map, and even in the speedrun, they choose to not deploy her either. The reason we do that is because we actually need her damage output for this strategy. In fact, we already needed her chip on one of the soldiers that Marcia comboed for a kill on turn 1, and we're also going to need to get her to the end of the map to chip down the boss. So the other reason to have all of the yellow units come with us is because it prevents them from running around and attacking the enemies. There is an incentive in this map to leave as many enemies alive as possible. Now granted, the yellow units will still have their weapons equipped and be able to counterattack, but this minimizes the number of kills on the enemies that we get and maximizes the amount of bonus experience that we're able to gain from that incentive.
There are a few Cavaliers blocking the way up north. Joffrey will be clearing these out. He's also going to land on a tile next to the heal bush with a hidden arm scroll. The chance for Joffrey at best biorhythm for fighting this arm scroll is a 43% chance. It's a really nice to have, but it's not strictly necessary, so if Joffrey failed this 43% chance, Don wouldn't have reset over it. Unfortunately, given this is Radiant Dawn, this won't be the last time we have to find an important hidden item without the 60% thief bonus. There's one other interesting thing that happened this turn. Marcia dropped her new best friend, a Yellow Army Bishop. They just finished building up their C support, so this was enough for this Bishop to charge forward and take the hits for Marcia. This Bishop baits most of the enemies into attacking him instead of Marcia, which is really nice. Unfortunately, he doesn't bait the Bow Paladin, so Marcia still has to dodge that Bow Paladin. One of the checks Don did before the preps at the start of this video was to make sure that this Paladin has negative biorhythm to maximize Marcia's chances of dodging. This Bishop's friendship with Marcia also causes the 2 Axe Cavaliers to canto further away, because without the Bishop drop, they would likely canto into a spot that would block Marcia from reaching the tile she wants to on the upper right corner, because Radiant Dawn AI works in mysterious ways.
As we collectively press F to pay respects for Marcia's short-lived Bishop friend, I do have to wonder if the Crimean army's relative wealth makes it suffer a bit in this chapter, because I think the reason why the bow paladin chose to attack Marcia instead of the bishop is because the bishop is equipped to light tome. Now, Dagon bishops on the other hand are too poor to have weapons equipped, so what if that worked out differently? But we can only look forward, and ahead of us lay two of the toughest enemies in this chapter, which are two bowgun warriors. They're tough for a few reasons. They're pretty fast, so Joffrey can't double them. They're relatively bulky, and they also have bowguns, which attack from 2 range, so you can't even counter them with something that has bigger oomph, like a Brave Lance. But we did have to move the Brave Lance over to Don Ved for the rest of this chapter, and he's charged with finishing off one of them that Joffrey chipped down on enemy phase. This leaves us relatively home free to set things up for the upcoming turn. There is one Armor Knight that stands in the way though, and this was the last stat check that we did at the beginning of the chapter. This Armor Knight, believe it or not, has a chance to roll high enough on speed that Joffrey can't double him. This is something that you really only ever see in Radiant Dawn, where Armor Knights and Generals are unexpectedly fast, but hey, you know, this game, it's a little bit weird.
On this last enemy phase coming up, Marcia has her short spear equipped to chip the Speedwing Halberdier at 2 range. This is the only tile where she can do that, and she barely reached it. There's also a Horseslayer Paladin on the left side who can kill any of our own Paladins. Joffrey's protecting the other Paladins by blocking the north path, but he himself dies to it. So how does he protect our flunkies, especially Astrid, from the Horseslayer if he himself would get killed by it? Well, conveniently enough, the Yellow Army has moved with us every turn and are much juicier targets for the Horseslayer Paladin, so they could just tank the hits for Joffrey instead. The Yellow Army also serves 2 other purposes this turn. 1, they bait the Onager hits away from our own blue units, and 2, they can maintain a vertical path north of Kieran. Kieran needs a clear path to break open the door with his axe because, as a reminder, for whatever reason, axes are effective against doors in the Tellius games, so Kieran can just one-hit KO this door with his steel poleaxe. The only other unit who can destroy this door in one action is Joffrey with the Brave Lance, but he has to use his last action to end this Arrive map, so this by default leaves Kieran, Deputy Commander of the Crimean Royal Knights, and a renowned Doorslayer, as the only option for this important role.
Kieran one-shotting the door is just about the only reliable thing that happens on turn 4. Everything else is kind of inconsistent, and they happen pretty quickly, so I have to talk about them a little bit disjointed from when they actually occur in the video. The most inconsistent thing that occurs is Marcia getting the kill on the Speedwing's Halberdier. She has to fish for a kill dance crit with only 26 displayed critical, so we want to get that out of the way pretty quickly. The other inconsistent thing is the combo for the boss kill. Though Joffrey's a blue-haired rider atop a horse, this is not FE4, and he can't kill the boss and finish the chapter on the same turn like Sigurd could. So we need to combo on him with 3 separate characters, Astrid, Makalov, and Don Ved, just to do enough damage. And both Astrid and Makalov have to cancel backwards after attacking him. Makalov therefore has to attack him up close, and he risks getting crit, and he also gets doubled. Fortunately, the boss's hit rate isn't so good. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't successful in diverting 2 of the Onager shots away from him, so he took them face on, and if he were at full HP, he would actually survive at a hit plus a crit. But that doesn't matter, he dodged both hits, and Don is able to finish him off the Brave Lance, obtaining his Woldau, allowing Joffrey to seize and finish 2-3 in 4 turns. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye!